Hi, Tahir. I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for chatting with me. I know it's a crazy busy day and one person and screen after another. So thank you.
No, no, my pleasure. Are you in the kids' playroom? Is that what I'm seeing behind you there?
Yes, yes. It's very professional, isn't it? When you got the well, I mean, it's an animated film, right? It's a kids movie, as they would say. No, it is not.
No, I'm just saying because I totally relate. I've got the same setup. I've got all the kids stuff behind me. It's very relatable. I got
Working
it.
from home. Working.
Yeah, the zoo sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say the film is wonderful. What a powerful story and beautifully told. Um, what is it that attracted you first initially to Charlotte's story?
Yeah, thanks so much. Uh, yeah, so Charlotte's. I mean, it's. I'm almost embarrassed to say this now, but I had never heard of Charlotte Solomon prior to working on this film, and you know, I studied art. I've made many pilgrimages to art galleries and museums. So I think once I learned of the story, the script was brought to an animation studio that I was working at. I immediately connected with Charlotte on an artistic level, but also learning the terrible tragedies that she lived through and endured through. Just that level of perseverance that a person must have in order to realize her goals and her dreams. Um, to me was sort of what I connected with the most. And immediately I felt like, okay, we got to make this film. We have to get this story out there to build that awareness, so that people will around the world can be inspired the way that I was reading about her. So that's what drew me in uh, immediately.
Yeah, you say you hadn't heard of her. I'd never heard the story either, and it's such a remarkable story. But what was it about Charlotte that you think sets her apart?
Charlotte Solomon was ahead of her time.
Mhm.
Um, she was a German Jewish woman that lived sort of right on the onset of the Second World War, and uh, I think her wanting to be an artist during this time, especially being Jewish, was almost absurd to think of. Um, so in that way, I feel like Charlotte, what set her apart was her sort of determination, and I think life or theater, which is what we based the film on. Um, I mean, there still really isn't anything like it. It's the world's first. I consider it the world's first graphic novel.
Mm.
Nobody had thought to put that many images together in that way before in like a comic book form. But also, it was written as a staged play with music. So Charlotte very much was ahead of her time and a prognosticator of trends and a pioneer. Again, in the darkest circumstances. So I think that it takes a very special and unique person to be able to do what she did in the limited amount of time that she had. So that alone, she also had this spirit and this boldness that set her apart, and made her a very worthy person for a biopic like this.
Absolutely. And I think I actually think it's one of the earliest lines of the film. She starts talking about this is all I have. And she starts talking about her art. I was wondering, what do you think it means for art to encapsulate a life? Because by the end, like you said, thousands of pictures. And when we think of a biography, I mean, I don't know about you, but I automatically think of a book, something like that. But here she's telling her story in such a unique way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's you just said it. it had never been done before. I think that Charlotte had a strong feeling that um, she she wasn't going to be around for much longer. So she really wanted to have her life story and all the people in her life be immortalized in a sense. So I think that's what kind of drew Charlotte to create what she did.
Mhm.
And when she says it's all I have, everything has been taken away from her. Her family, her livelihood, her 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 everything. So by giving this away, she's in a sense giving away her firstborn, her child. Please keep this safe. It's all I have. So I think the filmmakers involved in this project, myself and my co-director Eric, we felt a responsibility to guard that as if she was handing it to us. And in that way, I feel like I've sort of carried the baton from Charlotte and taking her story to the world and building this level of awareness. So that's something that the production, like all productions, had its ups and downs, but through it all, we kind of kept this mission statement. Let's do it for Charlotte. Let's she went through a lot worse than we did. So that's kind of what also I think helped inspire us to do what we did in telling the story.
And actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I mean, the animation style is so beautiful and so different than normally what we get in an animated film now. And it's very clearly interacting with her work. I was wondering how did her work influence the style that you guys came up with?
Yeah, it's a good question. That was one of the most difficult and challenging things, I think, early on at least, was that, I'm so sorry, was that Charlotte herself didn't uh, paint in a way that is necessarily very realistic.
Hmm.
And telling an adult drama, you really need to be able to capture expression and subtlety and nuance in the character acting. Charlotte's paintings were a little more on the abstract side. So so we had to kind of make a decision. Okay, how can we pay homage to Charlotte and her work, but at the same time tell a mature cinematic story? So one of the subtle things we did, for example, is we didn't use the color black in our film. There's no black in the film. Charlotte didn't paint with black. Some of the color palettes were, for some of the scenes, were inspired by colors that Charlotte uses. Some of some of her paintings we actually used. There's a scene where Charlotte's kind of on bed, crying into her arms. We use the same framing from one of her paintings.
Mm.
So those sorts of things. But probably the most powerful thing that we did, and one of the things that I feel most gratified about, was we featured her paintings during our art transitions.
Mm. Yes.
We would sort of have a painting kind of be drawn on in a way that it's being painted before our eyes and it's living. And that was something that I was really happy that we were able to do, because that is in the most direct way showing the audiences this is Charlotte's work. It's beautiful, it's inspiring, it's bold. The colors are strong, the brushwork is raw and real. So that's probably the best way that we were able to do what we wanted, which was show Charlotte's artwork to the world.
One of the things that I loved about the film and thought it was so interesting, the conversation around, well, especially even when she's in school, it talks about do not deform what's already perfect. But by the end, what we see, like there seems to be an interest in feeling over fact in the way that she tells her story. I think when she's describing her art, she actually makes a comment saying there are things that happen, things I remember, and things that didn't. And I was wondering how you felt that affects the ability to tell one's story, because here she is sharing her life and some of the events didn't take place.
Yeah, yeah. What a great question. I think Charlotte, her titling her work "Life or Theater" is it's a sort of an interplay of words, but really what she's saying is the life as it unfolds in front of you uh, is whatever you think or want to make of it. And when she created Life for Theater, all the characters existed, but they were all given stage names. And some of the events happened, and some of them didn't. And some of them were her interpretation. So I think Charlotte's work is really asking all of us to ask that question: is what is life? Life can be whatever you make of it. And for her, she chose for her life to be something that was inspiring and happy, even though she lived during the darkest of times. So I think the way that she was able to kind of perceive her reality and turn it into something that audiences could watch. What she initially intended Life for Theater to be was a staged play.
Mm.
So that's sort of a really interesting play on words, and I think that a very profound kind of message that she was communicating. So we, as filmmakers, had to also interpret Charlotte's story and figure out what are the parts of it that are worth telling, what are the parts of that weren't. And we also had to make those similar decisions. So I think, yeah, I do think it was a very profound way that Charlotte, even now was ahead of her time in creating that masterpiece.
Of course, yeah. Just as we wrap up here, to hear just one final question, I have to ask, there was one specific line of dialogue that I thought was so beautiful, and it was, "What matters is not whether life loves us, but whether we love life." I was just wondering what that means to you.
That's really interesting, because so the person who first says that to Charlotte were her initial love interest, and she interpreted it in a way that he was almost dictating it to her,
Mm.
in almost a condescending way. But we hear that line again after Charlotte has sort of come of age, and there's a little bit of a different spin on it, where who she's with later says, "Well, great, wouldn't it be great if we could love both?" And she kind of interprets that in a different way. You kind of see her expression change. So I think that line is really interesting, and we use it as a device to show that Charlotte has kind of come of age, and her understanding of that life, of that line, whether life loves us, but we love life, kind of changes as Charlotte grows. So I think it is a really interesting way in showing Charlotte's maturity as a person, in repeating it twice at different points in the film.
Absolutely, it's beautiful, and it also further proof. I have a theory in film: you can never trust a Mark Strong character. Uh, almost never. No. No, it's a beautiful film, beautiful piece, Tahir. Thank you so much. I wish you guys the best with it, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
I really appreciate it too. Great to meet you, and thank you so much.
Great, thanks so much.
Don't worry, like you never